Hey everyone, a bit of a different video to my usual vintage Star Wars reviews. This time I wanted to take you through a Star Wars battle droid on STAP model kit. Now I bought this on, because it's 1/6 scale, so that'll fit in nicely with my Gentle Giant Star Wars statues. It's come out in '99, so it's over 20 years old now, so let's take a look inside. So I have opened it already to check the contents. Basically you have the instructions, 2 plastic bags with the sprues inside, and 1 small bag that has a metal pin which will hold the model into the base. Now unfortunately the reason I opened mine is because I could see through the bags that a couple of pieces had come off the sprue, and in fact a few pieces were actually snapped. Now I think the plastic has probably got a little bit brittle because of its age, but it's a nice kit. I mean, going through it, the sculpting of it looks really nice. Here you can see this, the droid body, droid backpack, and it's, I say it's 1/6 scale, so it should be a really nice size once it's all done. Yeah, this sprue in particular, a few of these more fiddly little bits kind of came off. That's the top of the STAP. This is the main body. So again, this gives you sort of some idea of the size of it. The base. And this is the one, yeah, these couple of bits here unfortunately snapped. You can see the one at the top there doesn't resemble the one at the bottom. In fact, yeah, that part also came and snapped. And in these few of the bits, there's the guns. Yeah, these few of the bits have come off. So they're all clean breaks. So at the end of the day, it is a model kit, so it's going to be covered in glue anyway when I build it. So hopefully I'll be able to sort that out. And let's say that's the pin, the metal rods that will slip into the base to hold the whole thing together. And looking on the box, you can see, get into focus, that's what the finished model will look like. Okay, I'm going to get on and start building it, and I'll show you the next step.
Okay, and we're back. Please excuse the mess of my messy table, but never mind. Okay, so it's taken me about 6 to 7 hours to fully finish the build of it. So we'll take a look at the droid first of all. As I say, he's a decent size because he is that 1/6 scale. The build went together fairly straightforward. I mean, it took me a few hours, but most of that was trying to get rid of mold lines and smoothing everything down. For example, like here along the backpack, there was a big ridge where the 2 pieces met, but obviously you need to smooth it all down before you prime it and start painting. His legs are all floppy. He's articulated at the knees and at the waist here. That's so you can position him actually onto the STAP and get him on the platform and glue him into place when you need to with a little bit of adjusting. So he's going to remain floppy until he's attached to his little vehicle. His neck goes backwards and forwards, and the head goes up and down as well. So again, once you've got him into position, how you want him to look, you can then glue that and permanently fix it. You'll notice his arms aren't attached, and that's for the same reason. Spinning round. It's a very small contact point for his arm, so I'm not looking forward to gluing that on and making sure that's right, because I think that's going to take a little bit of fiddling around. Elbows are articulated. Be very careful when you glue these parts and try not to glue the actual articulation together, as I did with the other arm. Unfortunately, I did my best not to, but when it's set, a little bit of glue must have got into the joint somehow. And anyway, it's snapped off because it won't bend, but that's fine. I'll reattach that after I've painted it and I'm ready to actually get him onto the model. So if we take a look at the STAP, this is a really nice vehicle, really nice size. It's probably about 12-14 inches the base upwards. The vehicle is just on a metal pole. Again, you can get a bit of height on that and glue it as and when you want to. But whilst it's on its stand, I mean, you can freely just spin it round, so you can pose it to your heart's content. It actually has some articulation on the actual STAP itself, which I wasn't expecting. So you can actually position the top either sort of looking down or facing upwards, so you can get slightly different poses out of it. I mean, I don't think you're probably going to want to do too much fiddling about. I mean, I imagine you're just going to want it kind of even, really. The foot pads, this is going to be a major problem when I try and glue him on, because the foot pads are very far apart, much further apart. Oh, if I can sort of show you. Then his legs. I'm not doing this very well, am I? Yeah, you can see the problem here. So there is some give at the top, at the waist joints, but it's gonna be pretty tight. The other trouble is you're not going to be able to get his foot to glue into the pad completely flush, because he's going to have his foot at an angle. So I think what I'm going to have to do is some adjusting on this. I think I'm going to have to take off these foot pegs and possibly angle them so they actually go at an angle inwards. So it's just something to think about at this stage before you get too heavily into the painting. But I mean, as a model, I really like the STAP. As I say, it's definitely got a presence about it from a distance, because it is such a decent size. To be honest, if you're not much of a painter, you could just build the STAP and, I don't know, spray paint it a gold or a silver, perhaps throw a wash over it, make it almost look like sort of like a false bronze, and call it a day. I mean, and it'd be fantastic. And I mean, to be honest, the battle droid, even just stood next to the STAP, would look good if you are going to struggle to get him on. But yeah, I've got some ideas on the scheme I want to paint it. I'm not going to do it as the box art. I'm going to try and do something a bit more interesting than that. So right, what I'm going to do is get onto the painting stage. So the first thing to do is it'll just be a rattle can spray primer over everything, ready to put actual proper paint on. Because the things with a primer, all you're looking to do is, you don't even have to have a primer of the correct colours. A lot of people just do black, some people do grey. I'm actually going to do white for the droid, just because I have white primer, and blue for the STAP. And you'll see why shortly. Okay, I'll take it to the next stage and get back to you. So this is the moment we've been waiting for, and the grand reveal. And here he is, all finished. So as you can see, I've based him, rather than the box art of the sort of the classic Naboo style, I've gone for the Clone Wars movie, the version where you see Ahsoka and Anakin fighting battle droids on STAPs on the planet Teth. So what I've actually done is, rather than do the traditional black base that had the logo on it, I scrapped the box. So rather than do that, which I think is kind of dull, I completely covered over the base with sand, gravel, painted it all up, did it in the colours of the planet, that purpley pinky planet Teth, just to sort of blend it all in and make it actually, you know, from a specific scene of the movie. And I think it's turned out pretty nice. I followed photos as well as I could. There wasn't a great deal of reference available, but I tried to copy the design across the vehicle. I think the in-world design, you'll see that there's actually stripes underneath newer kind of paint that's been slapped on. So I think the the in-universe explanation is those kind of original lines were just there when it was part of the corporate trade alliances, and then once the war started, they kind of slapped on haphazardly these kind of war logos and symbols over the top. So yeah, it didn't take me too long to build him. Paint him. It was around 15 hours. Now that might sound like a lot of time, but on a model this size, I think that's pretty good, really. I mean, I'm used to miniature building and painting. So here's one I've got on the go at the moment. I mean, this is the type of size that I'm used to doing. So to do something like this, it was a refreshing change. And I think it's really nice. I glued in the top stem, but haven't glued in the bottom, so it allows me to rotate him and get the look I want. He is a little bit wobbly because he is just on that quite small peg, but he's very lightweight, really and truly, for a model this size. So yeah, I did a mixture of weathering. I try not to go too far with the weathering. Weathering is one of those things where I think little is better in a lot of ways, but it was a very simple paint job. I mean, it's mostly just a mix of blues. I didn't have all the colours I needed, so I just kind of mixed them, like the actual colour of the droid itself. I didn't have I had a couple of tan type paints, but again, it was just a mixing, a combination of light browns and whites. You can get the fairly close, I think, to how it was in the movie. It's the same with the actual the vehicle itself. I tried to match the blues as much as possible. It's quite a strong, vibrant blue in the cartoon, so I think I went for as vibrant as I could get. As I say, it was nice to work on something this scale, and honestly, it's so much easier. I think for a beginner modeler, I mean, I'm no expert modeler and painter by any means. I've only been sort of learning how to paint and build maybe a couple of years. I think as a beginner kit, a lot of people would be able to achieve very similar look, and anyone who's got a lot more experience than me will be able to achieve a much better look. But I think on the shelf, from a distance, this really does look the business. The size of it is so impressive. I had a friend come round, and they're not really interested in sort of this type of stuff, but they saw this on my table, and instantly they were impressed with it. And as I said, it does have that sort of awe factor. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in a Gentle Giant statue, because at the beginning of this, my whole kind of idea was, is this in scale with Gentle Giant statues? Is this a really nice cheap alternative to getting quite a high-end statue? So what I'm going to have to do is move it to a place I've got a bit more space. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, apologies for the light. I've had to move, and the light isn't great. Unfortunately, it's winter in Britain at the moment, so this is as good as we can do. But as you can see, I've posted next to the what I thought was quite appropriate, the Obi-Wan Kenobi Clone Wars statue. And the good thing with that statue is he actually has a broken battle droid that he's just taken apart on the floor. So it's a very good reference for scale. Straight away you can see, yes, that is very much in scale with the two. And again, you can kind of see the size now, because the Obi-Wan statue is probably around 12 inches in height. I think the way I've built the STAP, you can adjust the height depending on how high you put the flying stem. But I think I've got him around 16, 17 inches high, I think, to the top of his antenna there. So he doesn't fit in on any of my shelves, admittedly, in any of my cabinets. So the best way to really get the scale is if we can take off part of the battle droid here, and we can compare him to the model. And it's pretty close, isn't it? The hand is slightly bigger, but the arm and everything, the length is yeah, it's very, very close. So Yes, mission accomplished. I'm very pleased with that because the idea was I wanted a statue at a budget cost that works very well against giant statues. I've got quite a few. As part of my collection, um, and a few more. So yeah, I think he looks fantastic against that. As I say, it cost me around £30 to buy him. Obviously, it's you've got extra on top of that. You've got your paint modelling materials, that type of thing. I would say glue, brushes, paint. If you're buying everything from scratch, I reckon you're probably looking at around maybe £50 to get. What you want to do is obviously get glue. You need primer. And various little pots of paint. I would suggest getting the Citadel Warhammer paints. They're only a couple of pound each. You only need probably about half a dozen because the colour scheme is very simple. I actually made things a lot more complicated for myself because I did a much more complicated colour scheme, particularly with all the detailing and everything. If you went for the Naboo version, you wouldn't need to do half the work that I've had to do on it, frankly. Including even doing the textured base. I mean, again, I made life more difficult for myself by doing that. If you just stuck with the plastic base, painted it black, and wrote the logo on there, it'd be absolutely fine. And arguably, it'd probably be more in matching with the Gentle Giant ones. But yeah, I didn't want to go that way. Just brought him back into better light just to give my very, very final thoughts on this model. I really recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised. As I say, the kit is around 20 years old. In places, it's showing its age a little bit. You know, if you've built like a modern Bandai kit, this is not this is not like that. But it's still good. It still holds up. I mean, the designs itself are actually fairly simple at this kind of scale. Yes, there's a little bit of detail perhaps lost in some of the model work on the droid, but you know what, it's good enough. You know, as I said, when I showed you the comparison of the Gentle Giant statues, it fits right in. It really does, which was to say the main aim of this. And for £30, you can pick these models up for. If this was polystone statue by Gentle Giant painted to this sort of standard, you'd be looking at £300 easy. So this is a really, really nice alternative to doing that. I might even be tempted to buy another one, you know, and do it as the Naboo scheme, which might look nice against this one, and actually do the same thing with the base again, but this time do it as a forest base, a grassy plains like the Naboo has. That might be quite nice. So something to think about one day. But as I say, these things do take up quite a bit of space, really. Okay, well, I think that's probably just about it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, actually, one final thing I will say. This is going a bit into depth, but I mentioned previously that I was worried about how I was going to actually get him on the STAP, and I know other people who have dealt with this model have had a similar problem. I think I figured out the solution. What you have to do is plan ahead a little bit, make sure that the underside of the feet and the foot pads, you don't get any paint on them when you're actually building and painting it in parts. Then you glue the feet to the pads, the legs are nicely in place, then you can simply attach the body, it'll hold in place by its own accord, and then you just put each arm on one at a time. You can do it by yourself, you don't need anyone's help to do it, and it literally took me 30 seconds to assemble him finally. I know other people out there have struggled with that, so yes, I think I've cracked it. Anyway, that was probably a bit too much detail, and this video is probably way too long now. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this, and as I say, I hope this has sort of given some people out there food for thought. Maybe people who haven't never built a model before. I highly recommend it. I honestly do. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you.